The snow had fallen for weeks, turning the mountain into a white, silent kingdom. Clara Whitfield stood at the doorway of her family's small cabin, staring at the endless drifts of snow that nearly buried the fence line. Her breath came out in clouds. She was 23, independent, and used to hard winters, but this one felt different. Lonelier. Her father had passed away last spring, and her younger brother was off working in the next town. It was just Clara and the mountain now, and though she wouldn't admit it aloud, the solitude was beginning to gnaw at her heart. She wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders and whispered to herself, "Just one more season, Clara, just get through this winter." But the mountain was unforgiving. Supplies were running low and the trail down to town was blocked by heavy snow. Then came the sound. A faint muffled crack somewhere deep in the valley, followed by a distant rumble. Her stomach dropped. Avalanche. And just as the echo faded, she saw it. A dark figure stumbling through the snow near the edge of the forest, collapsing into the white. Her heart kicked against her ribs. She didn't know who it was, but she couldn't leave them there. Clara dragged the man back to her cabin, every step exhausting but fueled by urgency. Inside, she set him near the fire, peeling off his frozen coat and boots. His face was bruised, lips pale. He stirred slightly, groaning. "Easy now," she whispered. "You're safe." When his eyes finally opened, they were startlingly blue, like the sky after a storm. Where am I?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Whitfield cabin," Clara said, pouring him a cup of steaming broth. "Name's Clara, you were out in the storm. Lucky I saw you." He drank, then met her gaze. "I'm James Carter. Was traveling through the pass when the snow came down. My horse didn't make it." The heaviness in his voice made her chest ache. "You can stay here until the trail clears," she said quietly. No one should be out there alone. For a long moment, there was only the crackle of the fire between them. Then James gave a faint, grateful smile, the kind that warmed the cabin more than the flames. Days turned into a week. The storm outside never seemed to stop, burying the world in silence. Clara and James worked side by side, mending tools, chopping what little wood was left, melting snow for water. At night, they talked. He told her about the ranch he was heading to, a new start after leaving behind a troubled past. She told him about the cabin, her father's dream of living free in the mountains. There were moments when their hands brushed while passing tools, and both would pause, sharing a quiet look before going back to work. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Clara asked softly, "Do you think the pass will open soon?" James looked at her, his face lit by the fire. "Part of me hopes it doesn't, not yet." Her heart skipped. She looked away quickly, pretending to check the kettle, but a small smile played on her lips. The peace didn't last. One morning, Clara found wolf tracks near the barn, and one of her goats missing. That night, the wolves came closer. James loaded the old rifle and stood watch by the door. "You stay inside," he told her firmly, but Clara grabbed a lantern and stood beside him. "This is my home. I'm not hiding." The howls echoed through the trees. Then with a burst of courage, James fired a warning shot, the sound ripping through the night. The wolves retreated. Slowly, the silence returned. Clara's hands were shaking, but James reached out, steadying her. "You're braver than you think," he murmured. "And you're kinder than you let on," she replied softly. For a long heartbeat, they stood there, the air between them charged with something unspoken. Weeks later, the snow began to thaw. The trail cleared. James could leave. Clara tried to be strong as she packed him food for the journey. "I suppose you'll want to get going soon," she said quietly. He nodded, then hesitated. "Clara, I thought I was just passing through. But somewhere along the way, this cabin, you, became what I was looking for." Her throat tightened. "You mean that?" Instead of answering, James stepped closer, gently taking her hand. "I don't want this to be your last winter alone. Let me stay, or let me take you with me. Either way, let's not let this end here." Tears filled her eyes, but they were happy tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Let's not." Outside, the mountain was beginning to bloom again, but inside it already felt like spring. The snow was melting fast, turning the trails into rivers of mud. James stayed just as he promised, and together he and Clara worked to repair what winter had broken. They fixed the barn roof, cleared fallen branches, and planted the first vegetable patch of the season. Sometimes, Clara caught James looking at her when he thought she wasn't watching, an expression soft as morning sunlight. It made her heart ache, but in a good way. One warm afternoon as they stacked wood by the cabin, James said, "I could build you a proper porch here, you know. Somewhere to sit when summer comes." Clara smiled. "A porch? Well, I've never had one of those." He leaned on the axe handle, grinning. "Then I guess it's time you did." When the trail finally dried enough, Clara and James rode down to town together, her first trip in months. The townsfolk noticed right away. "Clara Whitfield! You've been hiding up there all winter," Mrs. Foster the baker exclaimed. Then her eyes slid to James, standing protectively near Clara's shoulder. Clara blushed under the curious glances. James just smiled politely and loaded supplies into the wagon. As they drove back up the mountain, Clara laughed for the first time in weeks. "You handled that well. I swear they were all ready to ask who you were." James glanced sideways at her. "And what would you have told them?" Clara hesitated, then said softly, "That you saved my life this winter. That you saved me from being lonely." The words hung in the warm air. James's hand tightened on the reins, and he gave her a look that made her heart race all the way home. Summer storms brought trouble. One night, lightning struck a dead pine not far from the cabin, and before long the forest was burning. Clara woke to the acrid smell of smoke and James shaking her awake. "We've got to move the animals now." Together they worked through choking smoke, driving the goats and the mule to safety. Clara's hands shook as she stumbled back to the cabin, coughing. James grabbed her shoulders, steadying her. "You all right?" She nodded, though her eyes stung. When the fire finally died down at dawn, the two of them sat in the wet grass, exhausted. Clara rested her head on his shoulder. "I don't know what I'd have done without you." He kissed the top of her hair, gentle and sure. "You'll never have to find out." Weeks later, on a quiet evening, James worked on the porch he'd promised. Clara brought him lemonade and sat nearby, watching him plane the wood smooth. Finally, she said, "You're not just fixing my cabin, are you? You're fixing me." James set the tool down and knelt beside her, his hands rough from work but gentle as they held hers. "Clara, I didn't know what I was looking for when I came here, but it's you. It's always been you." Her breath caught. She'd been holding back, afraid of losing him, afraid to hope. But now she let herself smile through tears. "Then stay. Stay for good." And this time James didn't answer with words, just a kiss, soft and certain, sealing the promise. By autumn, the porch was finished, and Clara and James sat together every evening watching the mountains turn gold. Neighbors began stopping by more often. Clara's brother returned home and quickly grew fond of James. The cabin, once so quiet, now felt alive with laughter. One evening, as the first snowflakes of the next winter began to fall, James looked at Clara with a soft smile. "I used to think last winter nearly broke me, but maybe it was just bringing me here." Clara leaned against him, her heart full. "Then let this be the first winter of the rest of our lives." The snow swirled, the cabin glowed, and somewhere far off, a wolf howled, not in menace this time, but as if singing with them.
Like, share, and subscribe.